Begin with Birchas Kohanim by Yedaber Denei Moshe Lemar, Daber Larvel Banav Lemar, Kesavaruchu, as Bnei Yisrael, Amar Lahem, Yivarechecha Adinoi v'Yishmerecha, Yoed Adinoi Pana v'Elecha v'Chuneka, Yisa Adinoi Pana v'Elecha, v'Yasem Lecha Shalom, v'Sameh Shemi al Bnei Yisrael v'Ani Avarachem. A good Erev Shabbos. At the same time, it's Isru Chag from Pesach, so we're right between Pesach and Shabbos, which means there's no break in eating. We just go from one meal to the next meal to the next meal and to the next. Mirz Hashem, Sunday morning, after all the days of Pesach and Shabbos is over, it's time for exercise. So everyone make sure you do your social distancing walk. You need to walk at least 15 miles to take care of all the potatoes that you ate over Pesach and the kugel you're going to eat over Shabbos. This week, if we were in shul, we would be reading the portion of Shemini. At home, you can go ahead, you can open up the book of Leviticus and turn to the portion of Shemini and study it in all of its detail. And it's towards the end of the portion of Shemini that God gives Moshe to give over to the Jewish people the laws of kashrus, the laws of kosher, and specifically dealing with kosher animals. What is considered a kosher animal? What is the sign of a kosher animal? Kosher slaughter. And at the same time, we know that kosher also includes a separation of milk and meat. So there's various different aspects that come along with the laws of kosher. Now, it's very clear from the Torah that the laws of kosher and the mitzvah of kosher belong to the category of mitzvot called chukim. In the Torah, there are three categories. The 613 mitzvahs are divided into three categories. There's edus, chukim, and mishpatim. Edus are testimonial laws, mishpatim are civil laws, and chukim are statutes. These are laws given by God in which the Torah does not define for us a reason. God has his reasons, but he doesn't inform us of these reasons, but nevertheless, he asks us to keep these commandments. And kosher is, of course, most famous of these commandments that we involve ourselves with every single day of our lives, 3 meals a day, that we are concerned about the food. The food should be kosher. It should be separated milk and meat. And yet the Torah itself does not define for us the reason, but nevertheless, it's what the king asks of us. See, the mitzvahs aren't here to give us a hard time. It's not here to stifle us. They're not here to restrict us. They're not here to crimp our style. The mitzvahs are given to us to elevate us. They're given to us to enrich us. A mitzvah is the physical embodiment of God's love for us and our love for him. The greatest reward, it says, for a mitzvah, kischar mitzvah, what's the greatest reward we can have for a mitzvah? Mitzvah is the very fact that we were given the opportunity to do the mitzvah, the honor that God gave us by giving us the mitzvah. That's the greatest reward of them all. Now, this doesn't mean it's always easy. In fact, many mitzvot are difficult. But the same is with life. How many really great things in life come along without much effort? If you want something of greatness, it's going to take effort. And therefore, when it comes to kashrus, of course, there's effort, and especially at first. Of course, there's difficulty in getting used to it and making the changes in life. For those that are raised in a kosher home, it may not be as difficult. It becomes part of the norm. You're just familiar with it because that's life. But for those that were not raised in a kosher home, for their decision to sacrifice and begin to go kosher and to make the changes in their lives, it is a tremendous undertaking, but at the same time, the reward is just as great. I want to share with you a story about Charlie from Chicago. And for a number of years, Charlie from Chicago was attending an adult education institute. He was going to classes, he was studying regularly, but it was an intellectual pursuit. He wouldn't allow it to involve his life and his behavior, his emotions, but he loved studying. And finally, after going for year after year after year to classes, it got to him that maybe he should be involving himself in the practice of that which he is studying. So one day he's chatting with the rabbi of the institute, and the subject of commitment comes up. That the Torah does demand commitment as well. At some point, other than study, we're supposed to commit to the action, to the mitzvot themselves. And Charlie says, you know what? That's it, Rabbi. I've made the decision. I've thought about it and I've made the decision. It's time for me to go kosher. Now, generally, when someone switches over from a non-kosher lifestyle to a kosher lifestyle, there's a gradual change. They first want to get used to it. They first try in the house. They try separating milk and meat. They try with some products. They try a little bit outside of the house until they're able to completely make the changeover. But Charlie said, I don't work that way. In my life, when I make a commitment to something, it has to be all the way. So starting tomorrow, I plan on going completely kosher. Tomorrow, we'll kosher the home. And starting tomorrow, both in my house and out of my house, I plan to go 100% kosher. So the rabbi hears Charlie, his commitment. He's proud of him. Finally, after all these years, he's going to make the commitment. But he's a bit confused about something. And he says to Charlie, look, I applaud you the fact that you're willing to go completely in. And if that's your personality, then by all means, let's do it. But if so, why tomorrow? Why not today? If you're ready to make this commitment, what's the difference today or tomorrow? Let's start. Let me come over to the house. Let's start looking to kosher the kitchen. Why tomorrow? To which Charlie says, Rabbi, don't push it. Don't push it. I said tomorrow, it's tomorrow. Okay, no problem. Tomorrow is very good. Tomorrow is very good. Why did Charlie indeed say tomorrow? Well, Charlie had this weakness for one particular food. There was one particular restaurant in Chicago that he loved more than any other restaurant that he, in fact, frequented very often. Those of you from Chicago may have heard of it. I never did until I read the story. It's called Super Dog. And Super Dog would probably be similar to what Pink says is in LA, where there's always this long line for their hot dogs. Super Dog was famous for their Super Dog. And Charlie just had this love affair with the Super Dog. He loved that particular hot dog. He loved it loaded with kraut and relish and mustard and everything you can throw on it. And therefore, before he was going to make this major sacrifice and this commitment, he wanted just one more time to sit and enjoy it and take it all in for forever. He will remember that last hot dog, and he will have to live with that memory and remember that taste for the rest of his life, for he is now going kosher. So Charlie makes his way to Super Dog, orders the largest one, fully loaded with everything, and he sits down and he's about to really enjoy himself when another customer sits down by the same table and they start a conversation. It turns out that their kids went to the same school, so they had something to talk about. But when he sees that this fellow is not getting up so fast, he figures, you know what, let me start eating. The hot dog is hot. And so he takes a bite in it, and Machaya, you can just see it on his face, the love that he has for this food, this delicacy that's in front of him. The fellow that's sitting at the table, his name was Scott, says, wow, you really love these dogs. He says, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's the highlight of my diet. I love these. But I have to tell you something. This is the last one I'm ever going to have. Last one you're ever going to have. It doesn't make any sense. Why? Why would you say that? He doesn't want to explain to him kosher. He is a total stranger. He's not going to be able to explain kosher, Bible, chukim. Go explain this. He can't explain this commitment that he's suddenly making this changeover in life. So instead, he tried something that he thought would work a little easier with this stranger. And he said, budget cuts. We're having a tough time with the economy, with my income. We went over our budget and there's no more eating out. And therefore, this was one of the things my wife and I decided is just going to have to go from the budget. And therefore, I will not be frequenting this restaurant anymore. The fellow looks at him and says, you know, this is so sad, but at the same time, this is your lucky day. Because Super Dog is a family-owned restaurant. And I happen to be the owner of Super Dog. So it's your lucky day. He takes out his wallet and he takes out a card. And the card basically says, lifetime supply of Super Dogs for free. That whenever you want to come into this restaurant, you can come in and you can enjoy a hot dog free of charge. No longer have to worry about your budget cuts. You're set, Charlie. You're set for life. Now, Charlie didn't want to dig himself in any deeper now to say, I didn't really mean budget cuts, I meant kosher. he was now stuck. He takes the card. And he's walking out of the restaurant with this card, and he's very disappointed, and he's very upset. He's upset with God. You know, it took so much out of me. It took so much courage to decide to go kosher. I had to work on myself and work on myself and work on myself. And I finally make that commitment. And all I wanted was one more time, just one more time. And now you have to tempt me with this card. You have to challenge me and tempt this desire that I have to carry with me this card. I have a lifetime supply of that which I love most. And he goes right to the rabbi and he tells the rabbi what happened. He tells him why it was tomorrow, why he wanted to go one more day, and what happened in the restaurant. And he says, it's unfair. Why would God do this to me? To which the rabbi said, this is not God playing with you. This is God showing you how much he really loves you and how much he trusts you. And God knew your potential. He knew what you had in you. He knows the sacrifice and the commitment that you have within you. And he wants to show you that it's even greater than you ever thought yourself. So by him giving this to you, he's making the challenge that much greater because he knows you can. And he wants you to know the strength that you really have within you and the love for God that you really have within you. And Charlie stuck to his commitment. And in time, one mitzvah led to another mitzvah and to another mitzvah, and he turned his life into a completely observant Jew. And he has many, many guests every single Shabbos. And in his dining room, there's a huge framed matted picture. But the most of the picture is empty, just blank. But in the very center is a small card. It's the card that he received in the restaurant that day from the owner of Superdog, which says lifetime supply of Superdog. And Charlie always shows this picture to all of his guests, and he says, this is my reminder of how much God believes in me. In Pirkei Avos and Ethics of Our Fathers, which we start reciting this Shabbat, each Shabbat between now and going all the way to Rosh Hashanah, we study Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So tomorrow we will begin chapter 1. There's a statement, Lefum Tzara Agra. Commensurate to the struggles is the reward. The effort that we put in, how much effort we put into our mitzvot, into our Torah, into our avodah, into the sacrifice of charity. That which we put in, that much, how much more we're going to gain, how much more we're going to reap, how great the reward is going to be. So oftentimes the mitzvahs challenges us. And yes, it could be a great workout. But as we mentioned earlier, as we all know, after Pesach and after a few Shabbosim and Pesach meals, we all need to start working out. And if we haven't worked out in a while, and we start jogging or any other exercise that we start doing that we haven't done in a while, you suddenly start aching from bones that you never knew you had, and different muscles that you never knew existed start hurting you at night. But maybe that's just the beginning. But we work out some more, and suddenly the body gets used to it. And suddenly the body can't go without it. It wants it, it thirsts for it, because you know it's good for you and it feels right. The same is with mitzvot. At first, they may be difficult. And at first, the bones may ache and the muscles may ache just a little bit. And the kvetching increases a little bit more. It gets a little louder and louder. But at some point, the connection that it has with your soul, and the connection that it actually has with your physical body, it forms this magical blessing that you feel in your life. Something has changed. Something has changed in your life. It has more purpose. It has more meaning. It has more spirituality. It has more godliness. And so let's embrace the mitzvot of the Torah. Let's embrace some of those mitzvot that are far more challenging, the chukim as well. The mitzvot that challenges us beyond our intellect to connect to God in a more powerful way. Let's work out both in the physical way, and let's work out in the spiritual way. Let's make it a wonderful week. It should be a wonderful Shabbos for all. It should be a healthy Shabbos, one that we're all protected. God should send refuah. God should send healing for all those in need of a refuah. And God should see to it that miraculously this virus is removed from within our midst, and life will return in a much deeper way, in a higher way, in a more spiritual way for all of us, so that we can be reunited in our shul together, we can be reunited in our community together, we can celebrate simchas together, we can be there for one another, but as I mentioned, in a higher, more deeper way, as we will have learned some great lessons from the past few weeks. And we'll discuss more of this as the days go on. Hopefully, just a short amount of time to go, and we'll all be together, first in our shul, and then our shul should fly in the clouds to Yerushalayim. It should happen with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu speedily in our days. A good Shabbos to all.